Okay. Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much, Irene. And I'd like to introduce Katie myself. I'm truly honored that she's here with us this evening from California. In 1986, at the bottom of a 10-year spiral into depression, rage, and self-loathing, Byron Katie woke up one morning to a state of constant joy that has never left her. She realized that when she believed her thoughts, she suffered, but when she questioned them, she didn't suffer. And this is true for every human being. Since then, she has offered her simple yet powerful process of inquiry called the work to millions of people at free public events in prisons, hospitals, churches, VA treatment centers, corporations, universities, and schools. As she guides people through the work, they find that their stressful beliefs about life, other people, or themselves radically shift. Through this process, Katie gives people the tool to set themselves free. Participants at her 9-day school for the work and the 28-day residential turnaround house report profound experiences and lasting transformations. Katie's events are riveting to watch. The Times of London reported, Eckhart Tolle calls the work a great blessing for our planet. And Time magazine named Katie a spiritual innovator for the new millennium. Byron Katie has written 4 major books, the best-selling Loving What Is, I Need Your Love, Is That True? 1,000 Names for Joy, and A Mind at Home with Itself. On her website, www.thework.com, you will find basic information about Katie and the work, Katie's blog, free materials to download, audio and video clips, a schedule of events, and a free helpline with a network of facilitators. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Katie.
Hello, everyone. And again, Irene, thank you for this invitation. It's really an honor. It's a privilege to speak to people who know what suffering is. I think every human being understands what suffering is. It's something that we've all had in common. But to be so in touch, those of you that aren't aware, Irene and Elizabeth welcomed me in before the event actually started. And I had no idea from the invitation I received from my staff what I was saying yes to. And I was just thrilled as they unfolded for me what you're about. And I am just so pleased. So a little, of course, I'd rather talk about you completely and hear from you. I'm so mesmerized with what you're in touch with, or touched by what you're in touch with. But this more than a decade of this deep depression and agoraphobia, I didn't believe I deserved a bed to sleep in. I was so, my self-esteem was so low. And one morning as I lay sleeping on the floor, a bug crawled over my foot, and I was from this dead sleep, and it woke me up. But before the ego could fill that space, I saw how all suffering was created. I saw how my world was created, my world, not other people's, my own world. I saw how it was created, and I understood the cause of all my suffering. And so I'm here to share with you. I don't know quite where to go from here, other than to answer any questions that you may have. I just am very excited about, you were sent some materials, and I hope if what we all share here today and our time together, that you look to the materials and experience self-inquiry for yourself. It's a very personal thing, and just you with you, and all the directions are there. So please share with me, ask your questions. And I have 3 grown children, and I was sharing earlier, I think one is here in Ojai, California, where I live, and I think one's in New York City visiting a stepdaughter, and he and his wife, and I think the other one is in Nevada, but I can't prove it. My children are in me. I don't know if they're all dead and I just haven't received the news yet, but that doesn't stop me from being in touch with my angel children. Nothing can stop the love and experience and goodness they bring to my life. No one dies. And I think I've said enough to take me to the point again. Let me hear about you. What is your experience? And if you have any questions.
Yes, we do have questions. And first of all, Paula's asking, why was your self-esteem so bad? Is it necessary to know what damaged your self-esteem to fix it?
Well, I know precisely. I was shown on the floor. I saw exactly the cause of my suffering. I was believing my thoughts. No one cares about me. There's something wrong with me. No one really loves me. Life is unfair. He doesn't understand me. He does. This was my internal life. And I was believing those thoughts. My husband is, he practiced Zen Buddhism for years. He's a Zen student and student of Zen. And I learned within this last year about the 4 noble truths and in Buddhism. And it fascinated me because that's what I was shown. So the first noble truth is there is suffering in the world, and we all agree with that. I don't think anyone would disagree. And the second noble truth is there is a cause for this suffering. And I saw on that floor in that moment of grace and clarity, the cause of my suffering. It's what I was thinking and believing about the world. It wasn't the world, it was what I was thinking and believing about the world, him, her, them, me. And the third noble truth is there is a way out of this suffering. I experienced that on the floor. There was a way out. I woke up to what was true and valid and what was not. I woke up to what was reality and what was fantasy. And all suffering is fantasies, is fantasy. What is true, what is right, is our birthright to understand. And it's so visible, we miss it. It's just so in our face, we miss it. We believe to the point what we're thinking that we can't see what's in front of our face, literally. So sometimes. So the fourth goal, the fourth noble truth is here's how, and they call that Buddhism. But for me, I call it the work. And here, like 30 something years later, I hear that Buddhists have been doing this in their own way, Buddhism forever. But what I invite people to is to identify the thoughts that are causing their suffering in any given situation where you are feeling depressed, misery in your own way. And it can be very, very slight or just heavy, heavy, heavy. It doesn't matter. Identify, I'll just put it here, what I'm thinking and believing. I move it from my head to paper. I write my thoughts that I'm thinking here on paper, and then I question them, and they're stable. They can't, my ego can't move them around. It's just, there it is, that thought, and I question it. And the first question is it true? What is what I'm believing true? And my ego will scream, yes, it will show me all the proof. And I just notice and appreciate it, because I don't have war with the ego. I see it as a terrified child looking for a home. Ego is a word for mind, and you can't touch it. You can't take it out. You can't, it's mind. It's not object. It's not an object. So who would do war with an ego but a really an out of touch, we could say human race, because we all share suffering in common. So from mind to paper, and then I question it with these 4 questions. And then I find opposites only after I question the thought I'm questioning. And I turn it around. For example, he doesn't care about me. And I see that situation where he said, for example, something to me, and I had the thought he doesn't care about me. And so he doesn't care about me. Is it true? And, I can do this 10 years after the fact, or I can, as soon as I get home, if it was out of my home, as soon as I get home, I can put it on paper and sit with it. Anchor in that event when he said that thing, and I thought, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about me. Is it true? That's the first question. This is me sitting with me. Can I really know that it's true? He doesn't care about me. And I meditate in that situation. And the third question, how do I react? What happens when I believe the thought? He doesn't care about me. So then I just meditate, I get still, and I witness my experience, and I feel, and I get in touch with the emotions, how I react emotionally, what happens when I think the thought he doesn't care about me in that situation, and I witness it. And then I witness the things I say and do and my attitude toward him. And a lot of guilt can come up. Was I unkind? Was I resentful, forceful? And how did that show? And was I pretending I wasn't hurt when I was hurt? What identity did I take on? So I just sit in myself and witness how I react when I believe the thought. Then the fourth and last question is, in that situation, who would I be without the thought? And then I meditate in that. I just drop what I was thinking about that person, and in that I can hear what he was actually saying without what I'm believing about him. It's a whole new experience. And then I turned around, he doesn't care about me in that situation, turned around, I don't care about him. And then I get a good look at myself again in that situation. Like I could just love him now, but I'm looking at that situation where I was suffering. What I was thinking and believing in any given situation is what I bring to paper now. 10 years later, 10 minutes later, it doesn't matter. But for me, peace is peace. And freedom is our birthright. So he doesn't care about me, I don't care about him. And I can see I have some amends to make and some faults to admit. And I take care of my life in that way, leading a kinder, more intelligent life. He doesn't care about me. I don't care about me. I don't care about myself. In that situation, where was it that I was uncaring about myself, my real self? And I just meditate in that. And another turnaround, he does care about me. And so I just stay there mentally and emotionally in that situation. He does care about me. And I listen without interruption to hear now what I couldn't hear then. So it's a silent exercise. It's just you with you. No one has to do it, but it's just 4 questions and turn around. If it sounds complicated, I apologize for that. But it's all in your gift package that I want you all to have. And
We have that, and that's wonderful. And I wanted to just ask you a few questions that people are asking in the chat box. It's interesting. Roberta is saying, I would love to hear how you were able to come to the realization that you did not have to be sad about your own mother's passing. You could see beyond the loss. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
well, yes, I can. It's so beautiful, and it lives in me today. She had cancer. I canceled all my appointments and went just to live out those last months or couple of months with her. And it was, I just didn't want to miss one moment of her life. And without the work, my mother and I hadn't spoken for years. And with the work, in other words, a questioned head, and I just didn't want to miss any more time with her. And love really is the power. It didn't matter what she said or did. There was nothing that I didn't listen to and understand. I want to make this shorter. When she was dying, well, near the end, I noticed that my sister and my mother were so close. And I noticed near the end, my sister didn't have the courage to sit with her, to nurse her at the level required for her beautiful mother, our beautiful mother, to be comfortable. And I noticed I was just fearless in it. It wasn't about me, it was about her. It was I slept with her every night, separate beds pushed together every night. And if she just breathed with a little like that, I was just wide awake. And I got plenty of sleep, but as needed, just wide awake. It was just like so in sync. And gave her meds on time, and to make sure that she didn't have to suffer physical pain, and didn't matter what she thought she wanted to eat. My mind said she'll never eat it. And it was right. Who with all those medications and dying, who can really get food down? But she just didn't matter what she wanted. If I could give it, I gave it. And it was just unconditional love in action. And then I was looking into her eyes when she died. And for me, she didn't. To my brother, my sisters, my children, my grandchildren, she died, not to me. I look at what they laid there, and that was not my mother. There was no transition. I was in touch with my mother. And that hasn't changed. Love doesn't require a physical body. It's so far beyond that.
We have a question from a parent who prefers not to be named, but she's asking, how do you recommend getting over the loss of a child who has passed by suicide? The guilt and the shame is overwhelming. I have begun to question the mother that I was. Up to the point of this death, I was confident that I was a loving and supporting mother. Do you have any advice?
Well, if you open your packets and look at the second exercise.
Okay, I hope that everyone has it. I have it up here on the screen. The second exercise
is you find your belief around that, and you
mhm,
write the belief up there.
right.
And so what would you say what you said again? The question from the participant.
The question is that her child passed by suicide. She thought that she was a really good mother before this and a very supporting, loving mother. She's now questioning the mother that she was because of this, of her child passing by suicide. Um, and the guilt and the shame is overwhelming. So if you could.
So see if she can respond to you. Are you feeling like it was your fault?
Oh, I think she's saying that because she's saying the guilt and the shame. So
Yeah.
anytime that there's guilt involved, I think that we always do. Yeah.
So your child committed suicide because of you. What you said and did and how you mothered, and because of you. Is it true? So all of you look, the belief is my child committed suicide and it's my fault. So it's your fault. Is it true? Now your answer, look for either yes or no. So this is this takes the desire to really want to know the truth. So yes, if you find it, or no, if that's what you find. They're both equally, they're equal because you're looking for the one that is true for you, not for the rest of the world, but you. So it's a yes or no, it's very simple. And then the second question, you see that on your one belief at a time worksheet?
Yes. Yes.
Can you really know that it's true? That your child committed suicide and it's your fault? Can you really know that it's true, that it's your fault? So circle one of those or just write it down. And you can do this later after the call, but do what you can from here. Now, the third question, close your eyes and meditate in the experience with your son, your child, your beloved, and witness how you react What happens when you believe the thought, it's your fault your child committed suicide? How did you react at the funeral? How do you react alone in your bedroom at night, or doing the dishes, or cooking a meal, too depressed to get out of bed? How do you react? What happens when you think the thought, it's my fault? And then continue to look at that third question. And when you get really still, it's my fault. It's my fault. How do I react when I believe the thought? You see the images in your mind's eye. Like right now, think of a banana. You see an image of a banana? Well, that's not a real banana. It's a dream. It's the dream of a banana. Okay, so this is what I'm asking you to do. How do I react when I believe the thought, it's my fault, my child killed himself? So I see the images of the past. I see the images of arguments. I see the images when I said what I said and I did what I did. And I see the image, and it's like hell. And as you witness that, it's a banana. It's not, that's not, and I'm assuming son, but son or daughter, that is not my child. That is, it's like looking at a lemon in your mind's eye, a banana in your mind's eye. It is false information, no matter how real it seems. And the effect of that is guilt and depression and misery. Now you also have images of the future. This is how you react when you believe the thought is my fault. You see images of the future where you're never going to get better. You're always going to be depressed. You're never going to get over this. It's too painful. And then you may see images in the future of you killing yourself. Sometimes the pain is so unbearable for some of us. So just notice and sit in that. And you have the courage to do it because some of you are doing it a lot, or you have, and you know what I'm talking about. And then the fourth question, after you've meditated 1 through 3, we move to the fourth one. Just right here, right now, who would you be without the thought, it's my fault? And just notice. Who would you be without the thought? So it's my fault, turned around. It's not my fault. So I'm moving you to turnarounds now. It's not my fault that he killed himself. So now these turnarounds are like trying on a pair of shoes to see if they fit before you walk out of the shoe store. You don't want to pay for them or leave and leave if they don't fit. So it's not my fault. He killed himself. He committed suicide. So that's a big ask. Let's see, if you find one, you can find two. If you find two, you know, what I can share with you, and you'll come to understand this if inquiry, if you want to bring that in as a practice. It's certainly mine. It's certainly mine. But what I am thinking and believing is the cause of my suffering. And I come to see, as I sit in, it's not my fault. If I believed what he believed, I would kill myself too. How could I not? what I'm thinking and believing is the cause of all suffering. How could I not? So all of you look to yourselves. Notice what you're thinking and believing about you, about the world, about the other. Can you stop believing what you're believing in the moment you're believing it? I'll ask it again. Can you stop believing what you're believing in the moment you believe it? It's not possible. And that is true for all of us, including our children. It's my fault he killed himself. It's not my fault he killed himself. You know, when I think it's my fault, with out of my experience, which I have a lot of in inquiry, in waking up to reality. But this work has allowed me, it's like my children have a right to their life. They have a right to live, a right to die. This is Earth School. And it's my Earth School. It's your Earth School. This is where we come into a school we call Earth to, you know, to my experience, to love without condition, to wake up to reality. And when I'm believing the thought it's my fault, I cannot love my child in the apparent not alive or alive. And until I understand unconditional love, which this work brings. And it's not easy, that's why I call it the work, which is what this love is unconditional. My children don't have to live for me. They don't have to be healthy for me. I'm just in a state of, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? And then it goes beyond our children. It goes to the world. When you understand yourself, there's nothing and no one you don't understand. And not from an egoic position. But if someone is suffering, I understand why they're believing their thoughts. And that leaves in me compassion, connection, and a fearlessness. Love takes courage. It's the absence of suffering. And I often refer to inquiry as a way to the end of suffering.
We have a lot of other questions. If you would be willing to answer some of them. Catherine is saying, and I know that a lot of the people who are on here have followed your work even before their child passed, but she's saying, I understand the work and have applied it in my life. I have had a difficult time applying it to grief. Could you speak specifically about, not just in terms of forgiving oneself for having this guilt about suicide? The guilt exists obviously for everything else that happens. We always feel responsible.
You know, I'm hardcore. So what I would do is I would judge when anything I felt guilty over, you know, like my child died and situations come to mind where I said what I said and I did what I did. I was harsh, maybe I was unkind, and I carried guilt for that. And so that is what I would move to the Judge and Neighbor worksheet, which is the third and of the three things in the packet you were gifted for this event. And so on number one, I would fill that in. And then I would meditate in that situation where I said what I said and did what I did and feel so guilty of with my child. And I would judge my child on paper. I wouldn't hold back. And then I would question everything I was believing. And eventually you come to see your innocence, and you come to see their innocence. And there's nothing that would ever separate you again. And if there's something that would separate you, it has to be what you're thinking and believing, not your child. And it's another worksheet.
Well, it's
And
not
so that-
just the guilt though. It's more just moving forward from the grief. I actually didn't get to finish the question. All of us feel that same guilt. I just wanted to make sure that everyone on here understands that it doesn't matter if a child is passed by suicide, or if a child is passed in a car accident. No matter how a child passes, or by cancer, we all still feel that guilt. But the question is, using your method, is it possible to move forward from the grief, which is different from the guilt? It's definitely something that we all experience, and we would love to have tools. And I understand from the packet that it's helpful, but maybe you could speak to that a little bit more.
Well, grief, oh boy, this is pretty hardcore, but as I understand your question, and I'll just respond to it. Grief, oh boy. Whew. For me, not for everyone, grief for me is like a tantrum. I'm not getting what I want. In some way, it's not fair that my child died, and I want my child to live. For me, I want my child. But the thing is, we can have our child. They're in us. They're in us. They're in us. They're not dead. They live in us. Like I see my son in New York in my mind's eye. And so he's in me. He's in me. And the whole world would say he's alive. He can call me on the phone. But as we're talking on the phone, I see him in my mind's eye in Manhattan. But that's not my son I see. But oh, my son's alive. He's in Manhattan. I just proved it. I talked to him. Where's my proof? It's still. My son lives in me. He cannot, like my mother, he does not have the power to leave me. I'm awake to the gift of my son, my daughter, my sons. When I grieve, or what was your term? Not grieve. What was the word you used? Grieve?
Well, I was talking about guilt, but I want to just say, I think that Candy has kind of hit the nail on the head. I know the answer from doing this work. Who am I with this grief? Who am I without this grief? Those are the inquiries. It's true.
Yeah. Who would I be with my story? Who am I without it?
Are you wanting to live your life unhappy?
For me, I don't want to avoid grief. I can't. My child is in me when I am experiencing grief. And so there's my child in me, and I'm experiencing grief, and there's my child. It doesn't add up. I don't know. This is a lot. I'm throwing out big bites, but your questions are big questions, and I can only share my experience. Bottom line, my children can't leave me. They don't have an option. Death doesn't separate me from my children. Not distance, no distance. But that is with a lot of work. If someone had given me these words, I'd say she's nuts and hang up. Some of you still holding on.
I agree with you, and I think that we have one of our listeners who's saying the permanence of death in the physical body is what is difficult for all of us, I think. I know that my daughter lives in me and is always with me, but at the same time, that human form is what we all miss. And so I think that,
Well, you know, that's just, it's, for me, it's, I'm not happy because my child isn't here with me. I want my child with me. And it's all about me, me, me.
well, Christy is saying, I love this. She says, I have to admit that I have described myself as standing with my hands on my hips and my bottom lip stuck out like an angry, frustrated child railing at the universe, at God. So yeah, kind of tantrum-like,
Yeah,
um, which makes sense as well.
that,
Um,
that's quite a glimpse of oneself. Yeah, it's a minor tantrum, but nonetheless, you know, some of us, we even separate from God when it's been so strong in our life. You know, it's like, and if I can't have what I want, I'm just not gonna, I'm gonna quit. I'll quit life and there. And then that's my life.
yeah. Well, I just want everyone on here to know that this is not something that you have to do right away. And actually, you don't have to
Or
do it
ever.
ever, ever, ever. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're not going to heal if you're not able to do exactly what these steps are saying. This is a beautiful way that Katie has found to move forward from her own grief. But I also want to just read some of the things that Kathy is saying. For instance, I understand my children are in me 7 months after my son Aiden passed, and Kathy has had 2 of her sons, beautiful sons, pass. I asked him where he was, and he told me, I am in you, and you are in me, which I completely believe. I was going to ask you at the very beginning, we had a question from one of the listeners asking about your kids. I know that you said that you're not sure where they are. So is there any information that you can give to us about them, or is it not possible, but people
Well,
are interested
I,
in hearing?
I don't think any of us have proof of where our children are. You know, I'm imagining my daughter's at home, and my children haven't passed for all I know. But I'm just imagining my daughter's at home with her husband and my grandchildren. I'm imagining there's a son in Manhattan, my son in Manhattan. I'm imagining my son in Nevada. And I see my grandchildren, and I'm just filled with love. Now, if someone told me they all died, then in my head, oh my God, I've lost my family. And I see them, let's say it was a bomb or something, and I see them all blown up. Well, that's inside of me. It is inside of me, meaning, didn't you all see the image of my children being blown up? Didn't you see that in your own mind's eye? That's all I'm talking about. If I say banana, don't you see an image of a banana, a lemon? I see my son in New York City in my mind's eye. You probably all saw my son in your mind's eye too, and you've never met my son. My son is living in you. That's what I mean by that. And when I think of them, am I at peace? Am I connected? And that doesn't change, just like with my mother. I have resolved all differences that I know of within me. And so when they visit, I'm delighted. When they visit, I'm delighted. My mother, my sister, who is died several years ago, my brother who died several years, they're all in me.
Okay, well, I am having a hard time understanding, and a lot of people in the chat box are as well.
Well, I don't, you know, I can only answer out of my own experience, but that packet you were sent,
Mhm.
start like baby steps and just for fun. It's a meditative process in the name of peace. You know, I have a 1 hour event on 9 to 10 Pacific time, Monday through Thursday. And then I have an event on Thursday that's a 2 hour event, and you can find that on my website. But we work from this packet that you were gifted. And and I'm as you ask me questions, I can only answer directly my experience, and I realize it's a big gulp.
Well, it's
In,
wonderful. And as I
inquiry,
say, I know
inquiry.
that a lot of people who are a part of our group have used your work in the past. And I guess that the most important thing is I loved the way that it was phrased that do we want to see ourselves in grief, or do we want to see ourselves um, not in grief? And that's the goal of this group, is to be able to move forward and heal.
Well, there are many, many ways, and your organization offers so many ways, and and this is just one way, and there are many ways, and I'm for all of them that work.
Well, and that's wonderful. And I think that one of the most important things that you're telling us is that we can change those patterns that we have in our mind, in our head, about different situations. And obviously, one of them is dealing with grief. Um, for so many parents, everyone around them is telling them that it's impossible to heal from the passing of a child, that you will probably get divorced after a certain number of months, that you will probably have many different problems that actually don't happen. And so being able to state the negative question that you're referring to, the negative side of it, and then being able to bring in that positive is very important.
Actually, to identify what I'm thinking and believing that is causing
Yes.
my pain,
Yes.
my suffering, that grief that I can't find a way out of. To identify what I'm thinking and believing.
Yes. Identify this scary,
and then,
terrifying situation that people are telling us is true, that actually is not true. And being able to find the exact opposite that actually can be our reality with the help of our kids is what's most important.
Well, yeah, to identify what we're thinking and believing when we're experiencing that pain, and then to write those thoughts down, and then to question them and turn them around. And I'm so limited to that. And again, there are many ways, but I'm just so limited to inquiry as far as a way out of suffering. But I think being together, all of you as a group, and supporting each other, I don't know anything kinder or more nourishing than that.
Well, and we feel actually, I just want to tell you that I think that a lot of us feel that we can't talk about the way that we're feeling with even close friends, but many times with family, because it's just too hard for them. They feel that they talk about our kids, it's going to make us sadder, which is not the case. And being able to be with like-minded people who are able to help each other move forward and heal is so wonderful. I feel that all of these people in this group are like family to me. They're my new family that I've chosen. And I think that most people feel the same way. And I also believe that the work that you're doing is very, very important. Being able to change people's attitudes and make them realize that there's another way of doing the process that they're doing, another way to heal. And
I think,
your story is very powerful too.
thank you. Yeah, it's not a story I would wish on anyone, that kind of depression. And that's why, I'm on
Well,
delighted to respond to the invitation today. And
certainly.
it's a big
And
goal.
Linda is saying, I have followed her work for years. This is the most challenging aspect of life that we will ever experience. We all process grief differently, and this is a tool that we have in our toolbox that perhaps can be used at a certain point down the line. Maybe some people won't be ready for it quite yet. And if it doesn't work for us right away, which is true, it's important to be able to have as many tools in our toolbox as possible as we move forward and
So
heal.
well said, Linda. Honey, that's just so right on.
And
There's so many ways, so many beautiful ways we have.
And Laura is saying, I have learned that it isn't either or, it's both and. I miss my son desperately, and I am happy in my job, my marriage, and with my other children, which is something that's also beautifully said. I love that. And iPhone, unfortunately, her name is not on here, is saying, I think it's possible to live in a new state where we make the choice each and every day to shift the way we think and what we believe. I think healing for me began in baby steps and surrendering to the possibility of living a joyful life. I am learning to create a new relationship with my daughter, which sounds like you're doing the same kinds of things. I know that all of this is a very almost charged subject with people who are going through this, because I know how hard it is to be able to understand that first of all, we all understand that having someone physically here is more important than anything in the world. That is definitely not something that I would trade in a million years. I would rather have Morgan here on his angel date than to be celebrating him here with everyone. But I must say that this whole experience has opened my life to magic that I never knew existed before, and to a whole group of people and a new belief system that is so freeing for me. And I don't know about you, Katie, but I don't fear death anymore. I would assume that you feel the same way.
Death to me is not possible.
Right, exactly. It doesn't exist.
It exists, and it existed until I woke up to reality, and the fear of death went with it.
That's beautiful. Kathy is saying again, David Kessler has said, and I'm sure you're very familiar with David Kessler, grief is inevitable. It is the result of great love, but suffering is optional. I think that Byron Katie is offering one way to identify the suffering and look at it from different angles to alleviate the suffering.
Yeah, and an option. Yeah, I love that quote. Yeah, and offering an option, and that's all.
Yes. Well, in any case, we have about 3 minutes left. So if you'd like to maybe sum things up for us, that would be wonderful. And
Well, if any of you, if it comes to you and your mind is open to it, if you look at the first part of the packet that was sent to you, and it's on I complain about. And if you just follow the directions I complain about, and then you notice, you begin to invite the ego just to complain. And just, I complain about, and then fill it in. I complain about him because, I complain about her because, I complain about the grocer because, and you just kind of allow your ego to just, and it is so much fun to, once you're aware of how your mind, the ego complains, it has its complaints, and this exercise, it looks like not much, but it's a pretty big deal what you become aware of. And then you get one that is really powerful for you, and you move it to the next one, the one belief at a time, and just meditate through it. Those of you that are meditators, or you want to meditate in the complaint, and then and it's extremely powerful. And then you move that belief again, the complaint, over to the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And then that will be a way to move your mind onto paper so you can question it. Everything on the worksheet is the cause of our suffering, what we're thinking and believing about me, about you, about the world. And, it's inquiry is not for everyone, and so one more tool in your toolkit.
And we are so grateful for it. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us this evening. And we always allow people to go ahead and unmute themselves and say goodbye and thank you. And so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.